Good evening, everyone. I'm Deanna Bremer-Fisher, Executive Director of Future Heights, and on behalf of Future Heights, the Cleveland Heights Historical Society, and the Cleveland Heights Historical Center at Superior Road Schoolhouse, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation this evening. Got a couple announcements that I'd like to make before we get going and I introduce our speaker. First of all, as the Executive Director of Future Heights, I would like to invite all of you to our annual meeting that is going to take place on June 10th. We have international journalist Charles Michener as our keynote speaker, and he's got a very provocative title for his talk that evening. It's Can Cleveland Heights Save Cleveland? Lessons from an inner ring suburb to its ailing parent. So it should be a very interesting presentation. I'm quite interested in learning what he has to say, and all of you are welcome to come. Also, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of the Heights Observer community newspaper. It comes out monthly, and it is available in all of our commercial districts in Cleveland Heights and University Heights. It's a citizen journalism project. Anybody can write for the paper, and we encourage all of you to do so. So I hope you look for it at your favorite merchant. And also, I want to call your attention to View from the Overlook, which is a publication that the Cleveland Heights Historical Society puts out from time to time, and they're going to be coming out with a new issue in just the next couple of weeks, so please look for that as well. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Our speaker, Jamie Bertram, comes to us from the Cleveland Heights Historical Society, Cleveland Heights Historical Society, from the Cleveland Restoration Society, where she has been on staff since May of 2008. She's a historic preservation specialist for the Heritage Home Program, which is one of the programs that the Restoration Society operates here in Cleveland Heights. It provides free technical assistance to homeowners and also has a component of a low-interest loan so that homeowners can get projects done on their homes as well, and that interest rate is currently at 3.5%. Jamie is responsible for the eastern part of Cuyahoga County. Cleveland Restoration Society serves the 7-county area. And again, she offers technical assistance and guidance to homeowners on their historic preservation projects. Previous to that, Jamie worked with the Cleveland Catholic Diocese. She worked directly with the diocesan archivist on their Sacred Landmarks project. And this was a project that Ursuline College, Cleveland State University, and the diocese were doing jointly to archive stained glass windows in all of the churches in Cleveland. And as you now know, with all of the recent closings of the Catholic churches, that work has become very important in terms of documenting and cataloging what was there. She also worked in collections management at the Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library in Staunton, Virginia. She grew up here in Cleveland. She was a class valedictorian at Ursuline College, where she received her BA in History and Historic Preservation. She holds a master's degree in architectural history from the University of Virginia. And she's very pleased to be back here in her hometown, and we are very pleased to have her here with us tonight. She's going to be talking about the greenest building is already built, and I know that's going to be of good information to all of us who own these older homes. So please help me welcome Jamie Bertram.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about sustainability and historic preservation. The greenest building is already built. Deanna, thank you very much for introducing me. So I don't have much more to say about myself, so we can proceed. But I would like to say a little bit about the Cleveland Restoration Society, in case you're not aware. We're a local partner with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Our organization was founded in 1972, and we serve Cleveland and northeastern Ohio. We're a nonprofit organization. We started out being an all-volunteer organization, and we've grown into a staff of 13. And so we've turned from a familial organization into a strategically and professionally run organization, and really grown from being very reactive in reaction to endangered landmarks to being more proactive through offering our preservation home loan program and free technical assistance to property owners. We specialize in historic preservation as a tool, as a community revitalization tool. And we're always searching for how we can strengthen our efforts to be more meaningful to Clevelanders and all those who call Northeastern Ohio their home. Just to give a little more information about our free technical assistance, we provide free site visits. I'm happy to come to your properties and discuss any sort of issues you may be having. We also have a construction manager on staff who is very knowledgeable about structural, mechanical issues, things that might be a little more technical. We also are happy to provide resources for contractors or general articles about maintenance issues. We're not affiliated with any company or contractor, so you are getting unbiased information. We also provide historic color consults if that's of interest to you. And again, our construction manager is happy to review any construction bids if you're in the middle of a home improvement project. Okay. So historic preservation has been taking green initiatives long before it emerged in the popular market in recent years. As a matter of fact, over 25 years ago, the National Trust was advocating preservation as a tool for saving energy in its advertisements. Richard Moe, the president of the National Trust, stated in his acceptance speech for the Vincent Scully Prize in December of 2000 that the greenest building is the one that already exists. And while I'm not going to go into the statistics that he provided in his speech, about CO2 emissions and embodied energy, I would encourage you to pick up a copy, which I've provided in the back, and to also take a look at the most recent green issue of Preservation Magazine at www.nthp.org. Moving on to current trends in the media and construction energy now versus, say, 80 years ago. The point of this slide is to demonstrate how things have changed and by comparing, say, big box stores versus independent hardware stores. Big box stores carry generic, inexpensive, universal items. They really emphasize ease and expense emphasized over quality, whereas local hardware stores offered advice on repair issues and emphasized quality over cost. So you might not get 10 options of paint at your local hardware store, but they're going to carry perhaps the 2 best quality paint, manufacturers, for example. Another issue is, of course, you've heard this before: repair, reuse, reduce, recycle. And many times people tend to replace things because they simply just don't know that it can be repaired. A perfect example of this is windows. I use the analogy of your car. You certainly wouldn't just throw it away the minute you started having problems with it, as you would maintain it and get it repaired, of course. The key is to do your research on these issues. Most repairs can actually be done right at home by the homeowner. Old houses were actually built for repair. It's inherently good design. And going back to the windows example, most often windows are easily repairable by the homeowner if you do your research. The cost of the materials needed to repair them, such as replacement cords, weather stripping, things like that, are very inexpensive, and it really just requires your time and attention. Replacing all of your windows, however, you're going to end up throwing them in a landfill, which is clearly not green. Moving on to energy efficiency. By taking a deeper look at contributing factors of energy loss, we can more effectively button up our homes. These statistics were provided by the Ohio State Weatherization School. While it is a common misconception that most energy loss is through the windows, as you can see from this pie chart, the most energy loss is actually through your attic, which makes sense. Heat rises. So insulating your attic is the most cost-effective way to increase your house's energy efficiency. Replacement windows, on the other hand, are much less cost-effective because they only contribute to approximately 12% of your energy loss, yet they are significantly more expensive to replace than other energy efficiency initiatives. Going back to insulating your attic, hiring a contractor to insulate a typical unfinished attic will run approximately $3,000, but it will cut down significantly on your heating bill. There are different kinds of materials to choose from and a few very important factors to consider as well. Very importantly, you need to make sure that your attic is properly ventilated. Insulation is ineffective without ventilation. The lack of the ventilation will actually trap moisture, which will deteriorate the insulation as well as the framing in your attic. Insulation also loses its R value when there is too much moisture. The attic will become superheated in the summer if the air cannot escape as well. Another important thing to consider is adding a vapor barrier, which is also critical to keeping the moisture out of the insulation. Concerning your windows, although I've already expressed my point about window replacements adding to the landfill, there are some other important points to consider when regarding windows. Old windows, especially when maintained and used in conjunction with a good storm window, can have the same R value as new replacement windows. And also consider that replacement windows typically have a 15-year lifespan. The old growth wood that's in your original wood windows has already lasted for 80 plus years, and it's an inherently superior material than what's available on the market today. Another note about vinyl windows is that it creates a toxic byproduct to produce, and it also detracts from historic character. Storm windows and weather stripping are two fairly inexpensive ways to cut down on the air loss through your windows. As an alternative to replacing your windows, consider having your existing windows repaired and weather stripped, and then installing new storm windows. Although you might have the idea of old storm windows that are really kind of tricky to use, and they're sort of an ugly aluminum color, they have made vast improvements in the production of storm windows, even in just the past 10 years. They have tighter seals, better gaskets, and easier functioning mechanisms. And they also come in a variety of pre-finished colors. Typically, you can find 7 or 8 pre-finished colors that run about the same price as the standard color. And that way, they blend right in with your window sash, so you can't even tell that they're there. Not to mention that they are much less expensive than replacing your windows altogether. Other places to look to cut down on heat loss is the fireplace. Dampers are critical to cutting down on the draft-in chimneys, which act as wind tunnels for heat loss. And also the attic, again. The attic should really be as cold as the temperature outside, so you want a tight seal to prevent the heat from rising up into the dead space. So you want to insulate between your floor joists, but also not forget the door, and make sure that heat is not escaping there as well. In the basement, there are several problem areas to look for. The basement should naturally be cool, and if it feels warm, then you're certainly losing heat. So common issues are warm air leaking from your furnace, ductwork. You would want to tighten up, you can tape the ductwork, make sure there's no loose joints in there, and also you could consider putting a jacket around your furnace to insulate the heat. Also, you want to pay attention to the bypasses between floors, such as the holes that you find from radiators, and also where the foundation meets the house. You can insulate your crawl spaces and install bats between the floor joists again to make sure that that heat stays in the livable area. Energy consumption. There are a lot of things that you can do that won't affect the character of your historic house in any way, and these are just some examples. CFL light bulbs, or compact fluorescent light bulbs, tankless water heater, Energy Star products, and also, of course, reducing your consumption of plastic materials. I have some statistics here just concerning light bulbs generally that, they're a little bit more expensive when you initially purchase them, but their lifespan's much longer, and they're also much more efficient than traditional light bulbs. Same goes for a tankless hot water heater.
What is a tankless hot water heater?
Well, it has coils in it, so basically, instead of holding a large amount of hot water that it's continuously heating, it just is a small tank that has hot coils that run through it. So when cold water runs through it, only when you're using it, it will pass over the coils and heat up at that time. It's not running all the time, so it cuts down significantly on your energy consumption there. Many green products on the market have also become more preservation sensitive. And you can see in this example, older solar panels were large, they were obstructive, certainly noticeable, but there are very discreet ways to put solar panels on a historic property now. And in these examples, you can see their individual sun slates, so you could have just a couple, you could do your entire roof in solar panel. It's really up to your discretion, but it's very subtle. It's still a standard solar panel in the way that you can produce energy. It's going to be connected. I'm sorry, I'm not very technical on the mechanicals behind the solar technology, but it's going to work in the way of a traditional solar panel where you can use it to conduct energy inside the house for your daily operations. It's just instead of having a large panel like you might see by the side of the road, for example, they're making them now in much more discreet ways. Was that a good explanation? Yes, exactly. Electricity, solar power. Okay. Another issue that perhaps you might not have thought of, but is becoming increasingly popular, is to funnel your resources from your downspouts. Some cities even require now that you disconnect your downspout from your crock, but as opposed to extending that downspout so that it runs farther away from your foundation, you could harness that resource into a drain barrel and then use that gray water to water your garden, for example. Another point here is that old houses were designed to be inherently green. Actually, the most efficient buildings were those built either before 1920 and after 2000. Historic homes, they have natural cross ventilation. They have thick walls for keeping thermal mass. They were designed with porches, shutters, and deep eaves, and also consideration for siding for shading issues. And they also have maximized natural light. So these are just several ways in which the house in and of itself is inherently green. Moving on to synthetic siding, just to put forward a preservation approach in the beginning, there are several downfalls to synthetic siding. Major issues are potentially that it could conceal rot. It also harbors moisture behind the siding, and it hides bug infestations so that you won't be able to see issues like that. It also doesn't significantly insulate. So it does have several downsides. And then you can see in the next couple of slides that it also hides architectural details, which are significant to the historic character of the house. When installed siding, the installers would often completely cut off architectural details. They'll jump the casings, covering up the character-defining features. Here's another example of, you can see where the siding has, in one example, concealed significant damage. It's also fallen in disrepair. Just providing you more examples of the downfall of siding can pose. Now, to go into some more green issues about vinyl in particular, it's not a green product in and of itself. It's not biodegradable. It produces a hazardous toxic when it's produced, and also if it's burned. As you can see, if a house catches on fire, that toxic is released into the air. and it is estimated that approximately 200,000 tons of PVC is incinerated annually in the USA, leaving behind ash laced with dioxin and the chemical additives used to make vinyl. So this is going into our atmosphere.
Are there any efforts to ban it on that basis? Are you aware of?
There's not any, I'm sure that there's efforts, but there's not anything in specific that I'm aware of. I know that there's been a couple of documentaries made on the production of vinyl, and the illnesses of factory workers that are exposed to it and those types of things. I don't know of that off the top. I don't know of the names off the top of my head, I should say. Okay, I just want to read quickly through some of these bullet points to emphasize that in most cases, green issues and preservation issues are very much intertwined and indistinguishable. They both avoid unnecessary waste, reuse existing materials, reduce the demand for new materials, channel yesterday's energy into the reduction of today's energy. They both embrace conservation principles, reduce sprawl, and also very importantly, they emphasize labor over materials. And this point in particular, I would say, emphasizing labor not only entails that you're reusing the existing resources or embodied energy, but it also underscores the craftsmanship of the home and going into the structure itself. And historic preservation is listed as a key element in the pilot LEED ND program. People commonly think that retrofitting a historic building to be energy efficient would be cost prohibitive, but actually since half of our existing structures are historic, this is an issue we have to face. As Richard Moe said, we cannot build our way out of sustainability. And an interesting note is that actually it was a historic building in Oregon that was the first in the US to achieve the LEED Platinum status, which is a very distinguishable honor. And moving on to environmental impact, specifically concerning demolition. Demolishing buildings, of course, waste natural resources and it puts these materials back into the landfill. And I just want to go over some of these statistics because I think they surprise most people when they hear this presentation, that typically 50,000 square feet, in 50,000 square feet of commercial building, the energy equivalent to 640,000 gallons of gasoline is embodied in that building. And that would generate 4,000 tons of waste in a landfill. We can't continue to build new buildings without clearing the old ones. So again, this is just not inherently green. Now, pushing the preservation angle of this issue, 70% of the total cost of rehab projects goes towards labor as opposed to materials. So we're generating local dollars, again, pushing the idea of encouraging our local economy. And also the bottom statistic you'll note was actually calculated by Donovan Ripkema, which is a local economic preservationist. Tearing down one small building can wipe out the entire environmental benefit of the last 1.3 million aluminum cans that were recycled. Here are some more, just to reiterate that there are lots of things that you can do to have sustainable living that are not going to affect the character of your home, such as cutting off the AC Also, repairing versus replacing. So really look into repairing your old windows before you go out and decide to replace them wholesale. And also consider the superior materials. I've already talked a bit on windows, but also consider things like plaster, which it retains the cool in the summer, and it has better insulating quality than drywall. Perhaps these are just a recap of all of the ideas that I've gone over. I think I've pretty much talked about each of them, but just here are some more various ways in which you can live in a sustainable way without, again, harming the historic. Oh, I'm going to. Sorry. You can move on. Okay. Thank you. So moving on to something that's caught a lot of people's interest lately, are heat loss inspections or energy audits. This is an example of an infrared scan, which you can see from the picture of the dogs, really shows you where the cold versus the hot is going. If you'd like to move on to the next slide. And here's an example of your heat loss that you would find in your ceiling and floors, where the wall meets the ceiling. You can see that there's a lot of air penetrating there. Here's another example of some areas. There's an electrical socket, and then also your woodwork around the window. And a lot of heat loss is lost through your window trim. So when you replace your window, you're not actually stopping this, but if you caulked, made sure that your window is properly closed, weather stripped, and reglazed, then that would cut down significantly on that airflow. Electrical sockets also can be easily caulked, insulated, or you can apply a foam back to them. Energy audits costs approximately $300. There are several contractors in the area that can do energy audits. They evaluate your whole house. They tell you where all of your major leakage issues are. And they also write up a nice report in the end so that you know exactly how to approach the different issues if you really want to button up your house. And they also provide resources for suppliers. So that's something to consider. And I wanted to wrap up with a fun little quiz, just because I do think that the statistics are overwhelming sometimes. So if every American home replaced just one light bulb with a CFL bulb, energy efficiency would be saved, enough energy would be saved to light. Anybody take a guess? 3 million? Oh, can you, sorry, advance the slide? Oh, sure. 3 million. Okay. Which uses the most energy in American homes every year? Sort of gave this one away, but. C. There you go. Okay. For each incandescent bulb you replace with a CFL, you can save how many pounds of CO2 from being added to the atmosphere during the life of the bulb? I'm sorry? C. Not quite that bad. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Replacing just one light bulb in each home with a CFL bulb prevents greenhouse gases equivalent to. See. How much of the energy in burning coal reaches the consumer as electricity? and third. Very inefficient. Okay, enough fun with the quiz.
So in other words, 2/3 is simply eaten up.
Yeah, it's just lost in. It's very inefficient. Yeah. They are. They do have a little bit of mercury in them, so you have to pay attention to the packaging and to find out exactly how to properly dispose of them. But they also, they last a lot longer, so you don't have that many to deal with. Um, okay. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
We have several windows that are hinged that open into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And on the windows of that type on the first and second floor have I think it's a copper spring flashing, so that when you close the window, it seals it,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps the window closed. With the finished third, and it's got a set of windows like that that doesn't have that. And I'm not able to find anything like that manufactured anymore. What do you recommend for that type of window to provide a proper seal?
Well, in the cold months, assuming you're not operating them, you could just get a weather stripping or caulk to put around the seal. I don't know if you can find that.
Weather stripping like just a foam?
Yeah, you can find a lot of different materials, but typically it's a little bead, something in the form of a coiled bead that you just unwrap and apply. So, sort of caulk-like. But you can certainly find lots of different types of weather stripping and hardware stores, Lowe's, places, Home Depot.
Yeah.
Even at the back of Old House Journal, sometimes there's the ads for houses or companies that make things like that.
Oh, okay.
You're going to restoration, right?
You could try that. I'm sure they probably have a workshop on weather stripping. Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to also direct your attention again back to the preservationnation.org, just to point out that they do have a new section dedicated to sustainability, and it is continuously updated. So they're always providing new information on green issues, and also to EnergyStar.gov. As I'm sure you're aware, there are new federal tax incentives for energy efficiency projects like new storm windows, insulation, new boiler, things of that nature. You can get up to a 30% tax credit. So what I'd suggest is doing a Google search if you have a specific project in mind and just searching for, say, insulation tax credit, and then it will send you directly to that portion of the website, because the links tend to get very lengthy and you're sort of digging through lots of stuff. So definitely look into that as well. Okay. Oh, sorry, there's another slide. Okay, I just also wanted to give you a little more information about the Heritage Home Program, since it is available to all of you here in Cleveland Heights. That, as Deanna had mentioned, it's a 3.5% fixed interest rate for home improvement projects with a 7 to 10 year term. Cleveland Heights is actually one of our original Heritage partner cities, and since launching the program in 2001, we've had 116 homeowners borrow $3.8 million in low-interest loans, reinvesting in the local community, of course. And a recent study by the Center for Housing Research and Policy at CSU actually provided a summary assessment of the impact of our rehabilitation loan programs. in Cleveland and also the heritage cities to show that homes utilizing our loans and homes within a tenth of a mile of those homes appreciated at a higher rate than those which did not participate in our program. And so this indicates a correlation between the stability of our neighborhood, social and economic dynamics. And then on the last slide, there's just my contact information, and I also have cards here. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I provided handouts on, I believe, on energy audit information, the solar shingles, if that's of interest to you, and then also Richard Moe's speech on preservation and sustainability, so you can have the full text for that. Thank you.